At the end of the 19th century, more exactly several years after the opening of the Suez Canal, a large ship coming from India docked on the shore of the channel. On board of the ship was a Belgian millionaire named Edward Empain. Edward Empain was given the title Baron by the King of France in recognition of his efforts in the establishment of Paris Metro, where he was an outstanding engineer. Edward Empain was a bright engineer with an economic mind. When he returned to his country, he established several projects that brought him a lot of money, and on top of those projects was the Bank of Brussels he created in Belgium. Collecting money wasn't his only hobby, he was passionate of traveling and he traveled to most countries of the world. He visited Mexico, Brazil and South America. He also traveled to Africa where he had many projects. Then he moved eastward to the land of magic and beauty, India. The Belgian millionaire fell in love with the East. He lived long years in India and he loved mythology and decided to search for the oldest historic place, so he moved to the cradle of ancient civilizations, Egypt. Few days after he had arrived to Cairo, he loved this country very much and decided to live there until his death. He even wrote in his will that he wants to be buried in dust of Egypt even if he passed away outside. It was normal for him to look for somewhere for his permanent residence. The strangest thing about it was the choice of the place in the desert near Cairo. Once he has selected where to live, he bent to study the architecture by which his home in Cairo would be built. He made a decision that the place where he lives in should exclusively be unparalleled in the whole world. Balconies of this palace were decorated with statues of elephants. It has a tower on a base that moves a full cycle every hour to allow someone to see all views around in all directions. The palace consists of 2 floors and a small extension near the big roof. On the walls of the palace there are statues made of marble for wonderful dancers from India and amazing elephants. Windows studded with small pieces of Belgian glass. It is interesting to consider that the palace was created so as not to lose sight of the sun the whole day. Most of the rumors that have made Baron Palace a real house of horror were about hearing voices for the transfer of the furniture of the palace between the rooms in the middle of the night and the lights that light up suddenly in the backyard of the palace and die suddenly as well. It was also proved by people living very close to the palace. The doorman of a building in front of the palace said that the ghosts only appear in the palace at night and do not allow anyone to remain inside the palace. He also said that the existence of ghosts is true, and his evidence was what happened in 1982, where many of the passers-by have seen smokes emitted from the main room of the palace then entered the nets on the main tower of the palace, then in the afternoon glows of fire were soon extinguished without the intervention of anybody. There were many reasons that might explain these phenomena. Baron Empain had his main room in the main tower which wasn't entered by anyone but him. Even his sister Helena and his young daughter Miriam weren't allowed to enter the main room in the main tower. This room was known as the Chamber of the Rosary, which has internal doors that lead to a pavement that joins this room with the Church of Basilica where the Baron was buried after his death. What increased the rumors of the presence of ghosts there was the hackers who hacked the Baron's room where they found all mirrors in the Chamber of the Rosary stained by blood. Also a huge number of bats were living in this room. The death of Baroness Helena, the sister of the Baron after falling from the balcony of her interior room. Meanwhile the Baron was in his room in the tower as it went to the south at the moment she was falling. The Baron ran to help his sister, but no way. The strangest thing was the main tower stopped and never revolved ever after. That might explain the smokes that came out of Helena's room to the tower where the Baron was at the moment of her death. After a period of time, Miriam the Baron's daughter was found lying on her face dead without a known reason. She was in a well of the elevator that was used to lift breakfast upstairs where the Baron used to eat his breakfast. Many of the palace guards who were leaving the place shortly after being hired confirmed that the blood of the Chamber of the Rosary appeared after the death of the Baron when the spirits of Helena and Miriam rested, as the Baron was the cause of severe suffering for the whole family. The mysterious atmosphere that surrounded the abandoned palace attracted a group of Egyptian youths in 1997 in a famous incident, when they sneaked to the palace at night and held concerts in the palace every night. Bright lights and loud noises were produced from the palace. Some people said that they've stopped after 2 boys and a girl disappeared as they were all dancing in the Chamber of the Rosary.